Morning Express it is. It's now 5 minutes after 7 local time. It's time for us to have The Way It Is. Now, on The Way It Is, in case you're watching it for the first time or would like to participate and don't know what it's about, we just weigh in on some of the things that are happening and how those are likely to affect us, especially politically speaking. I'll introduce the panel that we have this morning. It's a familiar panel to Morning Express and to The Way It Is. To my extreme left, we've got Senator for Mombasa County, Senator Omar Hassan, who's also the Wiper Movement Secretary General. Good morning and thank you for joining us. We have Muriuki Njagago, who's Member of Parliament for Mbere. Thank you for joining us as well. And last but not least, we have Ambrose Weda, who is a lawyer. Thank you for joining us. Also so well-versed in political matters. Somebody asked me the other day, why do you have a lawyer talking about politics? So I think it's also good to qualify that you're well-versed in matters politics.
Well,
Gentlemen?
we're also all lawyers.
Actually, you're also all lawyers. Yes, yes.
Actually, the world is politics, lawyers are one and the same thing. Go to America, go to Israel, go to Britain. They should know that. So even them, when the others are just sojourners in politics. The real ones, the world of our lawyers.
They're lawyers.
One of the few times I've agreed with Ambrose, senior counsel.
All right, gentlemen. Last week we had America going to the polls and basically electing a new president. As we speak, Donald Trump is the president-elect. I'd just like to get briefly your thoughts on that and maybe how that would affect Kenya. But first of all, just the fact that Donald Trump won. And I'd like to look at it not just from an American perspective, but what is the world saying? Looking at Brexit, looking at, just what is happening and the fact that many would not have thought Trump would become a president. Let's start with you, Senator Omar Hassan.
I think, for me, I first see nothing as a Kenyan which Hillary Clinton can do for us. We over-trumped Obama's card about the trickle-down effect on Kenya. He came for one large, global entrepreneur summit, and that was about it. We've not had much follow-up since. And there's nothing much that Trump can do against us. So this whole idea about Trump is over-exaggerated. And I've had very passionate debates as to why there is a benefit in changing systems time and again. Why do I say that? Elections, sometimes you vote or support somebody for a single issue. First and foremost, these Muslims, and I tell Muslim brothers and sisters, you don't have to go to the United States of America. The only obligation you have is to go to Mecca, if you must. And if you are in a capacity or have the capacity to do so. So this whole idea that Trump is saying no Muslims in the United States, you stay back in your country, build your countries. About immigrants, if you're coming from Kenya or coming from African countries, remove the leadership that has caused this kind of mayhem for you and create your own little United States in your own countries. Utilize your resources effectively. Clinton and Obama's administration will have been a continuation, Clinton will have been a continuation of Obama.
Of Obama's
policy. They are clueless with respect to the crisis they've created in the Middle East. Obama, through their lack of their indecision or some support for rebel groups and all that, have destabilized Syria. Totally, Syria today is totally in ruin, totally. Syria, in their quest to remove Assad in the agenda of regime change, have taken Syria 100 years backward. Every time you see images of Syria, it has been razed to rubble. Massive displacement. Syrians were not migrating to the United States. Syrians are trying to migrate to Europe and the United States because of the crisis Europe and the United States created in Syria. So there's this whole idea that Syrians just want to move to the US. Today, you're saying you're arming rebels and are thereby continuing to perpetuate the crisis in Syria. Young people are losing their lives, children. Hundreds of thousands of Syrians have lost their lives. So for me, the single issue I evaluated Clinton on was their policy. They assassinated, they choreographed the killing of Gaddafi and has created instability and strife in Libya today. Libyans are worse off than they were under Gaddafi. What they have done in Yemen. Look at the only real democratic transition that ever happened was in Egypt. The democratic president was toppled in the full glare of the international community, and hundreds of thousands of their supporters arrested and thousands killed in quelling demonstrations. So for me, I hope the Trump presidency will not go around creating this instability in other countries. Because I've heard Trump saying, you are worse off in Iraq than when you had Saddam Hussein, which is true. You are worse off in Libya than when you had Muammar Gaddafi, which is true. Right now, their quest to remove Bashar al-Assad has ended them in a war and sectarianism and given rise to the ISIS. So I think these people also must evaluate them from the prism of honesty. And this is one of the times that we are told when you rig an election, you rigged it against Bernie Sanders, who was a more progressive politician. You wanted to entrench the Clinton dynasty. So when you rig elections, people will rig you out.
All right. Muriuki Jagagwa, your sentiments and feelings very briefly.
I would not, I concur wholly with what the senator said, but the Americans have the democratic right to elect the president and representatives of their choice. Before they went to the polls, there was this hype that Clinton was winning by 2, 3, 4% margin. But when we woke up, I think on Wednesday, Trump won the presidential election. So give it up to the Americans. Let's wait and see what he says. Though on another account, I think Trump is turning around. He now knows that he is the president and there are systems in the American country. He now said, I've seen some tweet where he's saying that he was campaigning to overturn the same-sex marriages. Now he's saying, no, I'm not going to touch on that. He was saying he's going to overhaul the entire Obamacare policy. Now he has said, no, I'm not going to touch the core policy on Obamacare. So it's like, on one hand, it looks like a fraud. What he campaigned for is turning around.
And what he's promising now to deliver.
Exactly. No, so I don't know. Let's wait and see what he does. But I believe the Americans have the democratic right to elect people they want.
Absolutely.
That's up to them.
That is very true. And Ambrose Weda, maybe just looking and reflecting now on Kenya, many would not have expected Trump to be elected as president because of his brash, way of doing things, and the fact in what has been called a mature democracy. Some of the statements he made, and as of course reference to his derogatory statement towards women, would not be expected from a leader of the United States. However, the Americans voted for him, making a statement. Do you think in Kenya would get to a point where we're sick and tired of status quo, to a point where a newcomer who has never been in politics can actually be elected as president?
Yes. In February this year, what has happened in America happened in our own, the Law Society of Kenya. For the first time, we picked out somebody who has never played LSK politics, has never been involved, he's never even tried. And we said, you be the chair. We are tired of these shenanigans and all sorts of questlings and charlatans and vultures of reaction. And we elected Okero. That is exactly what the Americans have done. If you look at Trump and you look at Hillary, what people are looking for, which was in Trump, is somebody speaking from the heart, speaking honestly, sincerely, as compared to the coached up and somebody who's been well-dressed. You have question marks about Hillary, but he's talking nicely, doing it nicely, and people say, we know these are lies. I loved Trump because he was speaking from the heart. He was a human being with his own flaws, occasionally slapping the buttocks of women here and there, and saying, I'm sorry I did it. But Hillary, on the other hand, is do no good, no bad, see no bad, perfect. Yet God Almighty says you are not perfect, you just try to be good every day. So people say, we are tired. And they tossed him out. The other thing which is good with the Trump administration, this culture creeping in the US. Somebody is president, the son becomes president. Somebody is president, the wife becomes president. And they're already looking at Obama's wife, this one. Even here in Kenya, somebody is president, the son is president. Somebody is prime minister, the son was prime minister. This culture for humanity should be able to stop. You lead, you go. Okay. So I think what has happened in America is an indication to the world. Somebody in another country is a president, the wife is a vice president. And they are running it. Where are we heading? And what are the children of other people, the Jagaguas? When are they going to be the Omars? When are they going to lead them? If people choose their wives and their sons and daughters to continue leading. So I think what happened in America was very good. They have structures. So the excesses that people expect of Trump, they will not be able to do that. But Trump is right that people who migrate to America, most of them are actually people who have failed where they come from. It is not the very best. He says it's not the best who try to go into America. It's the worst. If you look at also what they did in Libya, it is now turning Libya was one of the best well-run countries. Well, a little freedom, but in terms of investment, food, money, resources, it was all in the country. Here we have freedom, but also a question of poverty. Kaburas have billions, and the Jagaguas here are MPs, but they can hardly make ends meet. And then they get something to loot. We want a country of equal opportunity. So we think, we wish Trump the best. And we wish those who are around him, he will be a first among equals. If he chooses the right people, things will work. Let us not fear.
Then the fact that people don't tell you they support somebody should not mean that that person is not supported. You know, a lot of people, I think, are very anxious about speaking out against status quo. Yes. So there was a general view that Clinton was winning this election. And I think when the masses spoke, they spoke differently. But I also want to qualify that Clinton did win the popular vote.
Right.
That has also changed.
Yeah, no, it has not changed.
After the Arizona vote and whatever came, it is now emerging. She also did not win that.
Okay, because the last time I took a tally, there was that issue that Clinton had won the popular vote by at least 200,000. So if that is the case, because Al Gore did win the popular vote but did not win the electoral college. So you want to ask yourself, what's this type of a system? Like in Kenya, we have a system where you have to get 50 plus 1. Or even in the old system, you had to, in addition to the popular vote, get at least 25% in 5 provinces. So right now, you have to get 25% in at least 24 counties, meaning at least half of the country must give you some mandate. Yeah, so that you must. So there is a rider. Many people think it's just the 50 plus 1. There's a reason why we want the votes to be evenly spread, so that you do not just cash on your votes in one region and become the president of one region. So that we know that there's at least 50% of the regions of the country are validated due to the extent of 25%. So, but I can tell you this politically correct language in how people recycle one another. You know, I was all for a woman winning the American presidency, but it would have been a great feat if that woman was, for instance, Elizabeth Warren, some person who's just come from nowhere, who's not a legacy candidate, who does not come from what is called a dynasty. But we want so that people can start to internalize and evaluate people on the basis of their character. Do you know one thing? I heard Trump in an interview. Do you know that Trump might have been a billionaire, but he was outspent by the Clintons? But it's just that he was more effective in his campaign. He used social media. He said it himself. I had him on CNN. So he was outspent by Clinton, I think almost by 2. But so that means, therefore, it was not necessarily the money that Trump had, because a few people might tend to position it as the money that Trump had. It was more about the message that was resonating with the majority of the population. And it brought 3-4 characteristics of the large American society. Because if Trump was saying those type of things and still could secure a win, notwithstanding, based on the American electoral system, it's a win.
It's a win.
So Trump said that we Americans are sexists. So here we are. They always come here with the ambassadors and all kinds of people, and also always say nice things. Obama saying how, you're not taking care of the women enough, doing this enough, comes and lectures us at Kasarani. I believe that what he said is right politically, but they also need to reciprocate it where they are from. Rural America, like rural Kenya, has fundamental prejudices against women, including women themselves, about women being in leadership. So they said they are sexist. They actually acknowledge they are racist. That there was a white supremacy, a white calling Let's make America great again. Great again. The coded word in there. It was great when there were white people. That was what the reading also in some of the racist enclaves. That this making America great again, meaning make America white again. You know, so therefore there was a racist undertone. And there was a religious prejudice. Trump could bring it on the table. That if today, if even here in Kenya, if you uttered a slur against a small minority religion, you are likely to suffer more consequences than in the United States. Because I think Kenyans are generally religious people. They're God-fearing people. So they do not want God to be desecrated in whatever form that he is worshipped.
Okay.
So I think the American public brought what is called a raw America from under the table and put it on us, and we knew for a fact that these people, you know, also have the same kind of characteristics which is quoted. Right. That's the word used by Weda in relative terms to us who believe we are so prejudiced and so underdeveloped and so undemocratic. In fact, to wind up, we can actually provide a template to the United States. You know, people think, you know, we need to learn from the United States. I had one of my senators in one of the interviews saying, oh, the United States is supposed to be a benchmark. We Kenyans can be a benchmark to the United States. We can teach them what they do not know.
Allow me, Muriuki Njagago, I know you want to comment on that, but allow me to move on because I'd like us to also cover other things. And I want us to come back home now and tackle the issue of our troops being pulled out of South Sudan. And of course, it has also caused a bit of, things being said here and there. And I'd like us, first of all, to listen to just some of the comments that have been going forth regarding South Sudan as the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces pulled them out after the sacking of one of our officers. Let's first of all hear what has been said so far.
We do not just wake up and say, because our man has now been removed or disciplined, we are withdrawing the entire troops. Those troops were taken to Sudan because there was a need for them.
The President as Commander-in-Chief does not make decisions on the basis of political consideration. The Commander-in-Chief makes decisions on the basis of security analysis and advice from the Security Council and other relevant institutions.
The Commander-in-Chief has spoken. Huko kwa mambo ya military hakuna negotiation ya kisiasa. Huyu mwingine mwenye alikosa kuwa Commander-in-Chief anapiga kelele mpaka anapigia wa military who needs respect and must be respected in the world because we are also a sovereign state.
All right, some of the comments coming through regarding the troops being pulled out of Southern Sudan. Ambrose Weda, do you think, or do you feel, or do you agree that it was rushed and ill-advised, number one? And number two, does it always have to end up being a political debate?
Number one, I think the decision by the president was right. What Ban Ki-moon did was just to desecrate the Kenyan army. If they felt that there was a problem with the commander, they would have been there to communicate with the boss. And who is the boss? The Commander-in-Chief. Say, you gave us this person, we have a problem with him, 1, 2, 3. This is the evidence. So quietly would have been redeployed back without necessarily giving the Kenyan army, the Kenyan forces a bad name the world over.
All right, sorry to interrupt you. Let me hear from Omar Hassan. I think we have a slight challenge with the microphone there, so we'll sort that out. But Omar Hassan, possibly your take on the withdrawal of our troops from Southern Sudan.
I think it was done in haste. It was knee-jerk. It should not have happened in the first place. We have a strategic interest with South Sudan. We should have looked at the wider interests of South Sudan, notwithstanding the processes that needed to be put into place. But you see, of late, Kenya has had this tendency of trying to blackmail the international community. This time they called the bluff. I can tell you with certainty, unless that decision is reversed today, already another brigade from another country has already been deployed to South Sudan. In fact, Kenya has been told to vacate its position. They were hoping that the United Nations and that the DPKO, the Department of Peacekeeping Operations, will negotiate with them. You know, we have had this tendency of saying how we're going to close the refugee camp in Dadaab. So you have everybody rushing here to try and plead with you not to close the refugee camp in Dadaab. We've had this way of blackmailing, trying to blackmail the international community. I think, so you say you're going to pull off all African countries from the ICC. You say you're going to do this, and so if you don't do it the Kenyan way, we are going to do it this way. And Kenya yet does not have the muscle necessary, those types of arena. It needs to have more of a persuasive type of engagement, where you maintain the authority and the legitimacy of the nation. So I think many other places, Kenya had an inherent right to do what they were doing. And there was probably no way that the United Nations could not touch them. But when they pulled this bluff of trying to withdraw the troops, I think they decided these guys decided, oh, this is too much. Kenya, I think, but I agree to that extent where there needed to be a process. But our protestation should have been about the process, so that we then are able to remove the types of, what do you call this? We say that justiciably, this was what was to be done. But you, on a 2nd of November, you say you're pulling out troops, and then you take charters there to start pulling off the troops. I think that was done in haste and without the necessary structures of consultation.
Muriuki?
My take is that the Commander-in-Chief acted in the best interest of the Kenyan soldiers. One, what the UN was doing, and Ban Ki-moon for that matter, is incite the local community in southern Sudan against the Kenyans. When they say that they never stood in, they never came in when people were being attacked, killed, southern Sudan will see that it's the Kenyans who are there and they did nothing, especially their commander, Maina. So you remember what happened sometimes back, I think in 1990 in Somali, when American troops were killed and dragged through the streets of Somali, like they say in quotes, like rats. So the president saw what was coming, what was going to happen to the Kenyan soldiers, and he rightfully pulled them out. Now, on the other hand, when they say the UN is saying that they're going to shut down the UN offices in Nairobi, I've seen some people being quoted that they want to retaliate. I don't think that we are here as an independent country to act at the whims of the UN. Yes, when our president says, let us do this, I believe it is in the best interest of this country and the soldiers of Kenya. So let them come back. If they want to deploy other soldiers, so be it. In fact, I believe the UN has not paid Kenya for quite some time for the peacekeepers in those countries.
But what about Kenya has a huge interest in southern Sudan, even businesses. Isn't that jeopardizing those particular interests that Kenya has?
Like some of the panelists have said, there ought to have been a process. One, it was Kenya's turn to lead the troops, the UN troops in southern Sudan.
When you talk about a process, are you talking about a withdrawal process or a process to take action on what the UN was claiming to have been?
Withdrawal, the process we took, I believe, is the best given under the circumstances. But for removing the commander, the man who was in charge, why wouldn't have UN called the president, told him there's a problem here? Can you get somebody, a replacement? You see, there's what we would call the morale of the soldiers in those peacekeeping missions, especially the Kenyans. You are told the man in charge failed. So the morale of the troops is gone. Because it brings forth your training, your culture as a military force. So you are going to jeopardize those young boys and women who are meant to be keeping peace. So I believe what the president did was good.
All right.
I think let's be clear. In every army, there is only one commander-in-chief. The rest are under him. For the Kenyan army, the commander-in-chief is the president. If you want to deal with anybody junior to him in the army, you deal with him. So Ban Ki-moon had no authority to purport to sack any of those commanders. He needed to report that to the commander-in-chief and say, you gave us so-and-so, you deployed so-and-so to us, he's not done well, please remove him and replace. That is the order. But if now he usurped power and say, I've sacked this one, give me another one, then in another morning, if they are not happy, they sack that one. That is discrediting the sovereignty of the country.
That would make
acceptable.
it sound like the withdrawal then was out of pride as a country.
Now, the withdrawal is not only out of, it is first, it would be out of pride, it would be out of the sovereignty, and then thirdly, this is a force. People who have put their blood, their lives forward to protect our country, the interests of our country outside. They are not there because they love Sudan. They are there to protect this very country, our interests. So when you desecrate them, you hurt not only those who are there, but those who are here. It requires the boss, the head of the army, to take a decisive action that gives hope to the troops. So the action the president took was, in my view, quite in order. Secondly, I would like the Prime Minister, Raila Odinga, to note that there are things that he should not be reckless about, especially when we talk about the army, when we talk about security. Some of these things, if he has issues, he can write to the president and say, Your Excellency, this one I think was not right for this reason. But politicizing it somewhere in Meru or somewhere in Bondo, people who have no say at all, just to get votes, is wrong. He must know limits. Finally, I do not think from our experience in Somalia, it is good for our country to go into the immediate neighboring countries for peacekeeping. Let us go to West Africa, and then let Ban Ki-moon, whenever there's an issue in Uganda, Tanzania, Somalia, Ethiopia, let them bring others, so that they don't feel that Kenya is taking sides in their internal issues. So the withdrawal, in my view, is God-sent, good for us as a country, so that the Sudanese don't feel we are backing up Riek Machar or Salva Kiir, but also good for our army to know that the commander-in-chief will stand by you. Even if you come home, then you are disciplined. But outside there, the commander-in-chief must stand by you. So I think that decision was right. And our Prime Minister, I am telling you, there are certain things you don't deal with in that way.
In public.
Let me tell you, you cannot tell the Prime Minister on how to run his business. The Prime Minister, the Code Coalition, has every legitimate and constitutional right to question government in whatever form it desires necessary. And this issue about secret, even American military and its conduct, its travesties are discussed in broad view, purview, when there is a violation. How you run the military is a subject of politics in the United States, because one of its most important policies is about military, is about security. So the security of this country is everybody's interest. And how we manage our troops, where you are commander-in-chief today or not commander-in-chief forever. So we need to ensure that when we make decisions, they are tempered with some bit of rationale, that we all accept the wisdom. This power, this discretion of commander-in-chief is not exercised in absolute nature without the necessary audit by Parliament. But Parliament has audited, and therefore if Uhuru Kenyatta is the commander-in-chief of the Kenyan troops here, and he has every discretion to make the decision that he feels so right, Ban Ki-moon is also metaphorically the commander-in-chief of every UN operation and has every discretion also to make whatever decision he feels right. And therefore, and it was not a decision made in haste. It was a decision that there was some inquiry. What Kenyans are saying is that the general was not asked questions with respect to the inquiry. So, and there are a lot of other reports lately by the UN that are pointing fingers on Kenya. Our mission in Somalia, sale of charcoal, the violations of civilians, they are there. So we need to start biting the bullet to sustain the integrity of our military.
True, but Senator, using your same narrative, then Kenyans are left with just what I'd call the political rhetoric between the deputy president right now and the opposition leader, whereas there must have been advisors to the president who, before he makes that withdrawal, I'm sure he didn't just wake up one day and call the troops. There must have been some security advisors.
You see, whether you are advised or not advised, ultimately that decision is your decision. I am advised also as Senator of Mombasa County. I have friends, I have allies, I have experts, I have constituents, I have everybody. Ultimately, that decision is your decision. Whether you are advised by 1 million people, whether you are advised by one person, that decision is ultimately your decision. So if with this thing about saying how the president was misadvised, you must be in a position to critique. You are the president, you are advised, but you make the final decision. In every function that you're given, you advise the chairman of Sony Sugar, but he makes the ultimate decision. You advise the member of parliament of the National Assembly, he makes the ultimate decision. So that decision, whether he was advised wrongly or rightly by Monica or by anybody else, is his decision. So secondly, as I said, if the issue was the process issue, we could have lodged a very firm protest about the process issue. For you to start withdrawing day 2 or day 3, these people will also show that they got grit. So this is a standoff which we created deliberately, and these guys have decided they do not want any standoff. Thank you for all the work you have done. They have already nice knowing you. They have appointed another. I can tell you, they have appointed another brigade to take over this position. My friend works with DPKO, Department of Peacekeeping Operations, And the last he told me is that there is you can take this to the bank that we have already appointed another troop, another battalion from one of the Far Eastern countries. Because, you know, these are sensitive military delicacies. Before you even created that transition, if you really wanted to pull out, you should have allowed some kind of, you know, transition. So you got to create a vacuum because these are positions that are appointed to you. So who did you expect to be there when the Kenyan troops were away? So they immediately also acted in the best interest of the peacekeeping operations in South Sudan, UNAMIS.
All right. Jakagu, you wanted to comment on that?
From the readings that we are reading, there was a double command. That it's not indeed a minor who was making sole decisions. You know, that is what I'm reading from the press, not that I'm privy to the advice the president was given. So when it comes to that, and there is a breakdown in communication, then I believe our man in Southern Sudan did the best that he could under the circumstances. Now he's being now told the blame is squarely on you. Well, the UN knows that there was a breakdown of communications between its agencies on the ground. So we cannot just blame the Kenyan troops or the man who was commanding the troops in Southern Sudan.
But
Okay,
ultimately,
let me just state this. Commanding an army is not commanding men in black. That's why men in black can come and mess up your elections in your face. And there's very little, because the chain of command is not working. Here, the Kenyan interest is both internal and external. And we are here, God placed us here strategically. We need the UN needs us. It's not a favor they are doing for us. And it's not a favor that we have troops that have accolades all over the country, all over the world. So what the decision the president took is in the best interest of the country here and abroad. What the prime minister is doing, I'm still reminding him as a leader, there are certain things you do as a leader, then there are other things you do as a heckler, there are other things you also do as just a fearmonger. But when it comes to military issues of God, I urge caution.
All right. I think let us move on to something else. I think I've got your take on that.
You see, the prime minister is under every right to address issues that he thinks are pertinent. After all, even Uhuru Kenyatta addressed these things in public. He expressed his anger during the Pastor parade at the Kenya Military Academy in Lanet. He made it very public. And therefore, the Prime Minister reacted publicly. And the opposition has reacted publicly. Wetangula has spoken to that matter. Kalonzo has spoken to that matter. I think it's also jeopardizing Kenya's position in legitimacy within the region. Okay. Kenya of late has been taken to be partisan in literally every crisis in the region. Its partisanship in South Sudan is well known. Its partisanship in Somalia is well known. That neutrality and that authority we had is being waned progressively. And therefore, we need to start to rebuild that trust and to rebuild that leadership by becoming more sophisticated in how we pursue our diplomatic and foreign policy.
All right. I think let's leave it at that. And remember, you're welcome to call in. Would also like to hear what your take is on this. So let's open up the phone lines and we'll take a few calls as we go along. But I'd like us now to progress, and I'd like us to look at, let's look at politics and locally what's been happening. And maybe we'll start with a soundbite from Martha Karua, who was here in the studio. And initially, I had basically asked her at that point where she was talking on, joining the opposition or being part of the opposition. She has now changed tune. And I'd like us to look at it from this perspective of how do we expect Kenyans to rely on our politicians when they blow hot and cold from the same mouth. But let's start first of all with her as person of interest right here on Morning Express and what she recently had to declare. Let's listen in.
I am in opposition. I lead NAC Kenya. He leads CORD, and he also leads ODM. So to that extent, we are on the same page. And yes, we are working together as opposition, and there are possibilities of working together beyond opposition politics. But NAC Kenya is a distinct party and will remain that way.
Will remain that way. It's not going to be merged into the other parties.
No, Jubilee must stop telling other parties that do what we are doing. They are not the standard. I would tell them watch the opposition to see how parties are run.
Not necessarily doing what they're doing, but
Yeah.
by virtue of the fact that when you go for a CORD rally, for example, you stand with the CORD principles and echo what they have to say, then we would assume that you're in agreement.
I stand as NARC Kenya, and we may not agree 100% on everything, but we largely do agree.
So do you think it is time that, for instance, Raila Odinga maybe hang his boots?
No. Like, if you ask me, I think it's time Uhuru and Ruto hanged their boots.
So there we go. It's time Uhuru and Ruto hang their boots. But a few months later, well, she's supporting their presidency. Your take, Omar Hassan?
I think it should just she's just a pragmatic politician. I think Martha has a certain firmness in her politics and a certain value system in terms of her integrity to work against corruption. That is a value addition to any political process. And I can tell you for a fact, in my 3-4 years in politics, I can tell you there are good men and women in Jubilee who even today I know, even if they were elected under certain broad banners, and they can still do good. And they are as bad people and bad men and women in CORD. So therefore, I think this is a country where we now need to start more and more evaluating the character of individuals. Where the nature and the ethnic configuration of our politics has made it so difficult for Martha, despite her value systems, despite her good intentions, to win a vote or a seat in Kirinyaga without declaring express support in Uhuru Kenyatta. You know, today, this good gentleman here, I've had 1 or 2 good things about him said. Ambrose Weda. Now, one thing I know here, for me, the issue of theft of public resources is fundamentally high on my prism of character. So when you're told that he does not steal, he does not do a lot of things that others do, it's God-fearing. But as long as he says he's going to go into Luo Nyanza with a Jubilee ticket, you can tell him that not suicide. He is not going to make it. Suicide at least assumes that you have a life already and you're giving it up. He doesn't even have the life yet. So I think it's the perversive nature of our politics. That if today, if he really wanted to finally get elected as governor or senator of Kisumu, the way he ran the last time, he needs to first go through some rituals of saying how he has so suddenly seen so much light that he is even now blinded by that light. That that Raila.
So in short, we have a hypocritical political environment.
We have a dispensation that unfortunately is polarized by our ethnicity and the blind quest for power.
All right, Muriuki Njagagwe, you're disagreeing with me that it's a hypocritical environment.
It's not a hypocritical environment. What it is?
But how do you account
Kenyan
for one?
politics is basically local.
All politics.
So when you go to Nyanza, like Wenda, he's tried. He's my good friend. He's a nice politician. But so long as he's coming up against the bleak of Raila, it becomes difficult. Mother Karua, she has a stock in politics, and a high stock. When she tried to go against the grain in Kirinyaga, opposing President Uhuru, I don't think she got 2,000 votes in her own county. And she had been an MP in one of the constituencies for about 3 terms and garnering over 50,000 votes. But when she tried her luck in the presidency against Uhuru, she got barely 2,000 or less. Now, when she wants now to come to be the governor of Kirinyaga, she can't make it under CORD. She cannot.
But
she says she's going to run with her own party, but support the president of Kenya, who is Uhuru Kenyatta.
And Kanu has said the same thing yesterday.
So that's up to now to the people
So
of
is it
Gishogo.
possible for Kenyans to view an individual on their individual and credentialed capacity as opposed to who they're supporting? As Martha Karua, one would imagine that she should be able over time to have had enough clout to stand as Martha Karua.
But who is she supporting at the top? The people of Kirinyaga, I'm certain, are not going to vote for her if he says he's going to support Raila as a president of Kenya. They want a person in Kirinyaga who is going to support Uhuru, because that is their choice of a president. And then now she can come with her party. Now we'll leave it to them to see whether they're going to elect a Jubilee governor or a NARC, what's the party? governor,
Kenya.
not Kenya party. But better still, I would urge her, join the party, come to Jubilee, let us do the nominations in Kirinyaga, God willing, be the best, and then you're elected under Jubilee, so that we do not have, in quotes, madoadoa. Yes.
All right. Weda.
One thing I'm very clear about is that I would not cross over from Uhuru's party to Raila's party. If it means I will not be elected, so be it. I'll work as a lawyer, serve the Lord, and whatever. Even if Uhuru himself sacked me as chairman of Sony, I will still support him. I will say, Kazi Patia, give somebody else, but let's move on. Life is not about what you have to get. If whatever you want is inside you, you get it. I thought that Martha Karua was the last woman standing. Now, after Nani went down, you remember the late Professor Wangari Maathai? She stood even against Kibaki herself, and she knew she would lose and said, so be it. Now we have immortalized her because of that position. I look forward to a day when Kenyans will elect leaders, not because of party or tribal affiliation or their money, but leaders who will deliver us to the next level. Because the leaders we have are our choices. The choices you make in life are the sum total. If you leave Omar here and then you elect other charlatans, they'll steal your money and siphon it out. You pay the price. It's not the leaders who pay the price. So I saw Martha Karua 1 minute saying President Uhuru should hang the boot, and then today I support President Uhuru. It is good, we welcome her to support the president and so on. And that is good. But you can clearly see it is hypocritical. And the legacy that Martha Karua has is not worth the hypocrisy. She has good credentials. I don't think the position of governor is big enough to sell the entire credentials. I really don't think so. There are certain things I wouldn't do just because I want to be an MP or governor. If they refuse, so be it.
One of the driving motivations for us to come in politics, and that's why lately I'm trying to build a much bigger constituency of like-minded people, young Kenyans particularly, to come into politics, is because if you want to change a system, don't just scorn at it, engage it. To shout in your sitting rooms, to have all the frustration in your sitting rooms and say, this man and this woman is not good enough. One of the reasons I come to these TV shows regularly is because first and foremost, many media people have said they think I have an opinion. But secondly, it's the constant public education. I'm engaged in a process of deliberate public education. Every time I come here, I try to make one statement that at least will be able to change a bit of mindsets out there. So that's why every time I appeal to the good men and women out there, that you do not change a system by sitting in your sitting room and getting frustrated by all kinds of things. But you change a system by engaging it. And to engage it, sometimes you need to be pragmatic to be within it. So whether we like it or not, we've heard from my brother's home turf, or maybe the larger Mount Kenya, but more so in central Kenya, that we're told when Raila is on a ballot, he has a very polarizing effect. We've had that rumor, that when my brothers and sisters from central Kenya hear that Raila is on a ballot paper, they are almost naturally mobilized and naturally, emotionalized. So Martha Karua, we have to be fair to her.
To survive.
She has to survive. There are these people who think Martha Karua is running for a seat in Siaya or somewhere in Ukambani, Machakos. She's running for a seat in Kirinyaga, where the stakes of our politics are as polarized and as high. Probably this politics of 2017 is going to be more vicious than you can ever imagine in terms of its constitution.
Senator, I want us to finish that by just the question, do we have any politicians who have principles and are principled enough to stand regardless of losing the seat, but maintain that conversation that you're talking about in engaging people of like mind?
But if you lose the seat, you lose the plot. Let me tell you the truth. You need an element of a certain look. Today, the entire Obama legacy is under threat because they were not able as Democrats to win the seat. So if you want to institutionalize and to perpetuate a certain idea, the platform to do it is, unfortunately, the way it has been created within the matrix of our politics is politics. Whether you of our nation is politics. Whether you hate the idea of politicians or politics, you have to engage the system. So what I'm saying, I'm not saying that you are at will to just somersault time and again. But I can tell you for a fact that to remain in the system when you have a certain value is a far better deal for the Kenyan people than to be out of it. Because I know a few men and women who I would prefer in the system, working their time out, their overtime, to ensure that certain things go in a certain way.
All right, I want us to...
I think let me just say something.
Yeah, go on.
There is one thing, I think these people, they double speak. There's one thing I've learned from Honorable Odinga, that you can stand up and make a constituency and be counted the world over as long as you take a path. I stood on TNA with Uhuru. My people said, no, if you are not with Raila, I'm no less. I think I'm better than most of the MPs, even nationally, and even as I grow, much better. So I don't think you must get a seat for you to be something. It is what you stand for and how you stand for it. If you are not an MP, there are so many MPs who cannot even be allowed to take notes where I'm talking. So it's not the position. You don't get leadership from the position, the title you hold. You are the leader, and you make it. Hassan Omar is a bigger senator, not because the other senators are less, but because he's Hassan Omar. Some senators, we don't know, they just whisper in our ears, you know I'm senator, you say which county?
We don't even know it.
So please, leadership is not about titles.
Closing comments, Muriuki Njagagwa.
I know others have tried. I give it to Wenda. I remember in the early days when we were trading in NYS, he was on the other side. You know, he was a thorn in the flesh of the leadership of NYS. I give it to him. Up to today, he has stood out. But others have tried. Look at Anyang' Nyong'o. He tried with Masani Angilu, I think in '92. He never made it. So that's why I started by saying... He should have tried himself. That's why I'm saying that even when they're here, he has tried it, I think once or twice.
Yeah, twice. But
politics is local. In fact, I don't want to sound like I'm discouraging Mother. Let her not try with NAC, Kenya. Let her come to the Jubilee. Let her join Jubilee.
Well, she has said that it's not going to happen.
Jubilee ticket belongs to the other lady.
Politicians don't blow hot and cold air at the same time from the same mouth.
No, I think
they read the signs of the time.
They
read the signs of the time.
They read the signs of the times. All right. Basically, I'd just like to get your closing comments after we run this clip, because looking at that hot and cold feeling or hypocritical way of doing things, maybe that's why we've not been able to slay that dragon of corruption. But let's hear some of the comments that have been made regarding corruption.
Who releases people on bond here every day? Who does? What does that got to do with me? What does it got to do? I don't even have power, like I said, to appoint you or to sack you. So, mnataka nifanye nini jameni? That I have not done.
Please, give us a break, my friends. You know, Kiingereza mingi, mnafanyia catwalk hapa around. Na ni wazi pesa ya umma imepotea. Mwenye hiyo pesa anasema aliweka kwa gunia. Sasa jameni, kweli dunia hii, you know, we must be honest with ourselves.
I've called you here to talk to you about what is in the mind and lips of many Kenyans today. And what I'm saying says that Uhuru has abdicated his authority as president. He cannot and will not fight corruption. Yesterday, we watched in disbelief and utter dismay the President of the Republic of Kenya, His Excellency Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, throw his arms up in surrender, attack and accuse his officers on live television, and blame everyone but himself and his government for the corruption ravaging the country.
Hiyo NASA ndio tunataka tunase wezi. Wale wanaiba dawa tunase. Wale wanasema ati kuna clinic na kuna clinic tunase. Wale wanatembea na kufanya mambo mengine na contracts za bandia tunase. Wale wanachukua pesa za NIS wanase.
All right, Muriuki Njagagwa, very simple question because we don't have time. Will we ever win this battle against corruption?
To begin with, the president was not throwing his hands in desperation. He is a human being. He's mad at his officers because they're not doing the job. But one thing that has
But
come...
he's the commander-in-chief. He is the CEO of the country.
What has
Do
come
something.
out of it? You know, this constitution empowers certain officers and certain offices. The president cannot just wake up in the morning and sack somebody because they have not worked. Some of them require a petition in parliament. We discuss them, and then if they are found to have not done their job, then they are sacked. So the president cannot wake up and say, who are you? You are going. No, he cannot like sack the director of public prosecutions. He cannot just sack Ouko, the auditor general. There are processes. And what I know has come out of that discussion, they have now formed a unit of 300 police officers to do what we are calling investigation into matters of corruption. So the president and the government are doing all that they can.
All that they can.
Yes.
All right, Ambrose Weda.
I can assure you the war against corruption will be won. But we must be prepared that the cartels are sharp, strong, big, and connected. And we must face them. I can tell you my own example. In Zoni, sugar has been stolen, money has been siphoned out, and as we ask, it is us who are being told to leave. The other day, on Wednesday, on Thursday, I remember a member of parliament came right in my boardroom and insulted me. Why? Because you're asking sugar has lost almost 30 million, almost this. So we are saying the cartels, they're there.
They're there.
And we as Kenyans must just fight them. Let us join the president and fight them. This country is ours. We must take it from the corrupt cartels.
All right, closing comments, Omar Hassan.
Jubilee
Less than a minute.
Jubilee does not have the moral stamina. It does not have the moral capacity and abdicated its responsibility towards fighting corruption. But you asked whether we will ever win this war. This is a war we must win, and we will win it. As Weda said, there is no two way about it. Absolutely critical that resources, and we're not only going to fight corruption as it goes, in terms of people not losing money. We also have to fight the war on corruption by recovering lost assets. So we are going to, as a court government, we are going to not only ensure that we fight corruption, we are going to recover each and every single penny that has been stolen from the people of Kenya.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. We'll have to wind it up.
And that is from both court governors,
the way it is.
Jubilee governors, and the national government.
Did you say court government or...
Court governor.
That's the way it is, and we'll have to wind it up right there. Thank you very much, Senator Omar Hassan, Senator Mombasa County, also the Wiper Movement Sec-Gen. We also have Muriuki Njagagwa, who is the Member of Parliament from Bere. Last but not least, we have Ambrose Weda, who is a lawyer. Thank you very much, gentlemen. That's the way it is, and we'll have to wind it up right there. I'll read your comments towards the end of the show right here, because there are quite a number, and time is up. Right now, we'd like to take a break. When we come back on KTN News, we've got some news updates. Then Robin Toskett is on standby to give us a sports chat. But on KTN Home, this is where we say goodbye, and Life and Style begins in just a few. We'll take a break. We'll be right back.
This is KTN News.